Hi, this is National Chess Master R. Rats here to continue round two coverage of the First America's Slow Chess Weekend Championship. Did I say that right? Look at my notes. America's Slow Live Chess Weekend Championship. Yep, there we go. Okay, this is a pretty interesting game. Uh, White took his time, but just didn't have enough. He's resigned. Um Obviously, king can't go to here. You get your rook hurdled, and the pawn will queen. And if you bring your king here, you still get hurdled. Rook check. King moves one way or the other. The rook is traded, and after the king takes the rook, the pawn makes a queen, and game over. It was interesting because White sacrificed a piece for three pawns. Let's go over the game one more time. I've covered it, but I'll cover it again. Uh, what black I was talking about the minority attack in this, and it seemed like black lost a critical tempo with a6. He should have been playing h6, and it cost him a pawn. Uh, but it worked out for him because White left his bishop on the lurch, and we'll talk about that. Uh, uh, I had mentioned in the video how black needed to play h6 and then knight e4, and here what White needs to do is just play bishop f5, and White will have a strategically winning game. You're tempering the queen. You have time to batten down the hatches on d4, and it's White's game. But White protects the pawn, and now black decides to win the pawn. Oh, good, another game ended. So, and looks like somebody, I heard a little tickle, like there was a draw offer. So maybe both games will end. Looks like it did. Ended in a draw. So this video is going to be short, and I'll be able to give a final commentary of each game. Let's cover things here. I know if I try to move the pieces around, it'll destroy here, so I'm going to have to rely on arrows. I'll verify that at the conclusion of this game in case I want to look at some lines. But generally, the piece is better than the pawns if they're not advanced. And it looked like they started to get advanced. I wasn't sure black was playing the correct strategy, and I was always after black for playing too quick. But he did generate a passed pawn with his effort, but White didn't coordinate his pawns correctly. I was thinking that bishop should have gotten into the king side and tried to help the blockade of the pawns. But you know, now the pawns start advancing and they're getting kind of dangerous. And here black or White misplayed it. He should give this check, take care of business with the knight, and then make sure he doesn't drop this pawn on g5, because when it advanced, it walked into pin. You just have to slide the king over and get it ready to advance. And White may actually be close to saving this game. Of course, the players will decide. They'll have to play it out. I will try to analyze that. Actually, I will, even if I destroy it. I'll come back to that, because what happens is there goes a pawn, and at this stage, pretty much game is over, and he gets his pawns connected again, but they're blockaded, and it's just not enough. So that pawn becomes too dangerous, and I mentioned that White needs to try to get rid of both black pawns, give up his, and draw with the Cochrane position, rook versus rook and bishop. And I was suggesting rook c6 here, but it was black can play bishop takes a3, but at least White's going to get rid of that dangerous pawn, and who knows what'll happen, right? Who knows? But now it's just a simple continuation. So to win, as I explained, let's bring this back to the point where he played g5. Let's do this h5 check. Now does this wipe? Yeah, it does wipe things out. Okay, now he can play king here because g5 check, you just take it. Okay, so let's go ahead and play that move. But here White needs to deal with his knight, so let's bring the knight. You put it on b1. Let's do what he did in the game. We'll assume it would have gone that way. Now it's black's move. I forgot what black played. I'm trying to play the same moves that black did against a slightly different defense. Let's see. Well, this bishop needs to come over. But now this king can go over here. Now g5 is a threat. And white gets two pawn, or black gets two pawns, but that may not be enough. White suddenly got drawing chances. Uh, so black needs to deal with this threat, meaning he's got to move his king or he's got to move his bishop. And white's free to tempo the other one in just a moment. Let's move the king for the fun of it. Now here comes this check. This does give up the f5 square. Not much white can do about it unless he. It's too late now. Well, no, it's not too late. I just don't have the full continuation. You could put a rook behind it and get ready to play g5 and f5. Let's try that. Rook f1. Now the threat is g5, tempering the bishop, followed by f5. So let's back the bishop up so we can answer g5 with bishop f5 and answer f5 with bishop g5. Maybe these things are getting blockaded, but white goes and attacks this pawn. Black guards it. And now we get a tempo. Hooray, a tempo. But we're not ready for g5. But we're getting close. And, this isn't forced, and it looks like black has maybe some counterplay here. But, hey, white can say, I'll go here, and maybe we'll go back and forth and call it a draw. But, you can come back here, and now, maybe black is still winning, but here white didn't lose a pawn. That's the difference, and black has to find a defense. And black was moving quickly, so we don't know what black would do. But you had to see the tactical shot that you lost that one pawn, and that hurt you. But you were taking your time. You did pretty well. But the game was your advantage earlier with bishop f5. Let's come back and look at that, and then call it a game. Okay, bishop f5. Tempo's the queen. Where's the queen going to go? Let's put it on c7. That's a safe square. Now you got to batten down the hatches here. Now you play the rook d1 move you want to play. Okay. Let's take it just to give white an isolated pawn. And bring. No, you can't put the rook on c8. Let's offer a rook trade or bishop trade. Take it, even though it develops his rook. Get your queen off the file, and white should be winning this. Okay, should be. Pawn ahead. Black's got some drawing chances if he can get to a rook or a bishop versus knight inning, but that's a long way off. But white shouldn't be losing this by any means. Thanks, gentlemen, for playing. I'm going to close this one off and then do a quick exam on the last two games. This one ended in a win. That one ended first. Which one was this? I don't remember. Oh, yeah, this one. Okay. He put his pawns on the light squares. Now the king came up. Bishop. Well, you got the pawn running. That's fine, too. That'll work. You just have to watch out for an impromptu bishop takes b3 at the wrong moment. Well, you don't want to take, then black gets a dangerous pawn. He did take. Oh. Okay, now you may have to give up your bishop. Whoops. See, here it goes. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, no, that'll do it. Now you make a queen and the pawn is stopped. White did this fine. Okay. Oops, went too far back. Hitting the wrong buttons. Let's see. Black made it interesting. Can black do anything else here? See, it's clear that after this, after c7, You just stop it. And even if the pawn is on b2, the bishop on c2 is covering b1. So the only hope would have been to try to exploit this pawn, but white's got too many pawns here. White can give up the c pawn and start this one running, and here it goes. Now you go and win the bishop, but well, it's a fight here. The king's close enough to stop this pawn. I think the white king's too active, but it's a little more interesting defense. Let's get the bishop on a good diagonal, but white just comes here. Might as well go after the pawn now. Here comes the pawns. Take it. Here they come. Help, Mr. King, trying to get over there. Now I just push here, and you can't stop me from going in. Okay, so white was winning that all along. And the other game ended in a draw. I didn't... Look what... this happens. I go to close a game, and it gives me this silly thing. Oh, I hate this. Oh! Now I got to make sure I don't wipe out the wrong game. I don't know why it does this. I haven't figured it out, but I want to get to this other game here. I didn't go back and cover that entire game. I think I covered it pretty thoroughly earlier. White missed some good chances against the black's slow opening, but black did the things that he needs to do to get a draw. Now this does look like a perpetual check is coming. So I was starting to like black. I liked black earlier. Let's back it up to, let's just go over the whole game. Okay, go from start to finish. Okay. And I was saying I don't think this is a good idea to take that. Black's pretty much equalized. And I was wondering about this running those pawns. It just seemed a little wrong. It's rare that I see it. And suddenly white's got some activity, mate threats, and black has to weaken his position. But black's defending. He's finding resources here and eliminate the threat on the knight. Then black decided to send his queen the other way, attack a pawn. But here's the critical point where I was recommending knight e4, and I'll come back and we'll look at that, because that's something. That's how we'll close it. Because if I analyze it, I wipe out the game and I can't cover things. The only way to do it is if I get an analysis board out of this, and I can't really. But here I was saying I like black. I didn't even notice this pawn was loose. And when I come back from the last video, that there's a rook on e8 or e1 of black's. Like, how the heck did that rook to get there? Because assuming this pawn is still here, it is a great question on e5. How does a black rook get to e1? It's a long, laborious path. You got to get it to a8, meaning the bishop's in the way, then to a4. And if white will move his rook out of the way, you can get in by way of b1. If you can get in there safely by e4, he's got to get this bishop out of there, and not sure how that happens, and it ends up back on d3. It's very puzzling. But I didn't miss this pawn was missing. So the knight comes into e4, and I was really starting to like black here. I mean white. But he comes up with an exchange sacrifice. So obviously some thought went into that. White was short of time. Could white have done any better? Well, you've got to give it back. Let's see what he's threatening here. This threatens queen f1 mate. Very nice. Okay, how do you stop mate? You bring your rook back. No, ooh. Well, let's see. What if you bring your rook back? We'll look at that in a minute. Okay, this allowed a check. And now there's clearly a draw by repetition. Right? Rook takes, queen takes, and you get a draw. Okay. So what about rook back here? Okay, that's the alternative. Now comes, I guess it's a draw still too here, check, and back and forth we go. Yep, that's a draw. So great move, rook takes e3. It forced a draw. So white needed to, that rook on e1 paid off. White needed to avoid this happening. How can white improve his position? Let's see, this is a threat. That's why he played queen h4 to protect that threat. I was liking white positionally because of the pawns on the dark squares and the fact that black's pawns were on white squares. I wasn't watching for a black attack. But there it is. Here, let's try this move. Instead of queen h4, let's try queen h6. Queen h6 may do it. That defends the knight on e3, and it defends the h3 square. Now, what can black do? I'd love to get a rook to h5, but I don't know how to do it. Let's see. I don't think there's enough in a sacrifice here. This may be the move, queen h6. F3 is not covered. I can get a check down there. Let's try that. Queen here. Okay, now the threat is queen f3 checkmate. How do you guard that? F4. Now you take en passant here, and you slide the king over. Black's doing okay. Black's doing okay here. He had resources. He played this well. Anybody's game still. That pawn's a nuisance. Okay, let's back it up to the critical thing where black may have missed the. Let's look at before e5, because I was liking black after e5, but am I liking black as much before e5? I was liking it because they had control of the center and the white rooks were not coordinated. E5 just bungles a pawn, although black gets some play for it. That rook on the 8th rank proved the difference. So let's back it up to one more thing. Let's look at the we played rook a7. Okay, I was using diagrams. I want to play this move. Now, the first point is if knight takes, and unfortunately, I think if I play one, I wipe the other one out. Let's see. But not necessarily. Let's see. Knight. Why isn't it showing knight e4 here on the score? I've already wiped it out. I've somehow already wiped it out. Okay. Knight takes, pawn takes is on the bishop. The bishop has to move. Where are we going to put him? Let's put him on c4. Now, black has a choice here. He can take with check and get at least a draw, right? Or he can take with the rook and threaten some nasty discoveries. But if he threatens the nasty discoveries, the king just goes to h1. And so I think this is the correct choice. Now the question is, does black have more than a draw? Let's see. It just seemed like an aggressive thing to try. So we don't know which way white's going to take. What if he takes back with the bishop? Now this check comes in, and you go over here. Now you take the bishop, and the knight can take. You get a queen check, and the king comes here, and you're running out of checks. Rook f1 is a threat. I want to use this bishop on this long diagonal, but it's too slow. But you can play bishop here. Of course, white has a choice, but it seems to force a draw. Although this position isn't drawn by any means. We're doing bishop a6 to stop rook f1. Let's go ahead and gobble a pawn, see what happens. See if it's playable. We've taken this check away. White's up a pawn. Maybe knight e4 is not enough. Maybe this defends. But it's good food for thought. You can sit down and look at the game on your own, take my ideas and analyze the games. Hopefully it helps. That's my goal, is to help you people. Giving back a life of chess enjoyment to you all, so you can all get better at chess. All right, thanks so much for your time. The next games are tomorrow. I'm giving a couple of lessons in the morning before the round starts, and I'll probably have some in the afternoon. Matter of fact, I'm sure of it, which may interrupt my being able to cover all these games at least live. But if I'm giving a lesson while I'm in between the videos I make, I'll keep the windows open and I'll come back to it after I finish my lesson. But I want to get videos of all the lessons up. Of all the rounds up, and hopefully we can get some more chess masters who will come in and do this, because I think these tournaments can be a big success. I can't promise I'll be able to do them for all, but I wanted to make sure I did it for this first inaugural one, so that we can promote this and see bigger and better things happen for chess at chess.com and standard chess play, because this is how you get better. This is how all the title players got their title, playing a slow time control like you fine gentlemen did. Thanks so much for your time. Take care.